Good morning. Here we are again. It's Tuesday morning, 9 o'clock, which means it's time for our Facebook Live with the Resilience Factory. Coming to me from me, Pippa Shaper, this time. Gabby, you saw last week, and next week you're going to be, hopefully, God willing, seeing the two of us together doing a Facebook Live on answering your questions. So please do send in any questions that you have that you'd like to have us answer, possibly surrounding the series about debunking the myths of resilience, or just any other questions that you might have that we could answer for you. So what we've done so far is we have been debunking the myths of resilience, and we've got up to number 5 so far. So I'm just going to recap what those are before I go on to today talking about myths number 6 and 7. So myth number 1 is that resilience is all about bouncing back. And we quickly debunked that, saying that there is no such thing as bouncing, and there's no place of going back. You don't go back to where you were before, nor would you want to. But there is a place of being able to grow forward from resilience, with resilience. Myth number 2 is saying that resilience is all about being tough and strong. And what we debunked about that was the fact that there's this real paradox, really, that in fact, resilient people, authentically resilient people, are often the ones who are the most authentically vulnerable as well. They have courage, and it takes courage to be vulnerable, and it takes courage to have true resilience that lasts for a long time. Remember, when we're talking about authentic resilience, we're talking about what's going to last you a lifetime, not what's going to last and get through the next week. It really is about the long haul. So we talked about that, but resilience isn't a suit of armour that you put on, that it is something rather born from deep within. Myth number 3 outlined the fact that people think that resilient people don't do emotions. And as I told you on that one, I tried doing it without doing emotions, and it doesn't work. The fact is that authentically resilient people really do know how to face their own hard, challenging emotions, the full range of them, and the emotions of other people around them. And they're able to do that with real, again, with vulnerability, but with courage, to be able to stay in that difficult place, to be able to face all of the emotions and not to try and skip over them, not to try and go around the edges. Myth number 4 that Gabby talked about last week is that resilience is just about putting your head down and getting on with it. Now, whilst that might work in the short term, and sometimes you have to, there is no choice. When you have in a tough situation, you have to just get through it. And one of the things you have to do is just put your head down and keep going. But over the long haul, that doesn't work. That's what leads to burnout. That's what leads to people really crashing and burning. So the truth is that authentically resilient people know when to stop. They know when to take a duvet day. They know when to say, things are hard for me at the moment and I need to slow down. They don't just keep pushing on and pushing on. Myth number 5 was that resilient people can go alone, that they're independent and they don't need others. And as Gabby said last week, the truth is that we are wired for connection. We can't go it alone. As a human species, we are made to be interconnected with others, and we're not made to be able to do this journey of life alone. So the truth is we cannot do that. So those are the first 5 myths up till now. And we would also love to have your feedback on what you've thought about these. What have you thought about the myths surrounding resilience? Are there myths that you've been buying into over the years? Are they things which you'll still have doubts about and you think, no, that is the way to do it? We really would love to hear from you, to hear whether we've managed to debunk any of the myths, and whether you have now any better idea about what authentic resilience really is. So today I'm going to be talking about myths number 6 and 7. So myth number 6 is that resilient people are just born that way, that you've either got it or you haven't. So contrary to what people think, resilience isn't some kind of superpower that some people are born with and some people aren't. Now, it's true that as a species we are born resilient, and all of us are born with a level of resilience. But if it was just that way, that either some people had it or some people wouldn't, it would be a pretty doomed place that we lived in, a pretty doomed world. it's such a great truth to know that actually resilience can be grown in every single one of us. So resilience isn't just a character strength that you have or you don't. It's something that can be developed and learned through the passage of life, but also with real conscious choice that you are going to develop your level of resilience, that you really want to do that. It's a competency, and it's acquired, it's refined, and it's developed over time. And all of us have that ability, that we're able to do that. So it can appear that some people are more resilient than others, and that some people have just been born with a special something, but that really isn't true. And it's a great relief to know that whatever level our resilience feels like now, it can be improved upon, and that it has to be a constant journey. It's not a once-off thing that you get to do and then that's it, you built that competency and you never have to practice that again. It actually has to be practiced on a daily basis as well. So authentically resilient people have faced challenges in their life the same as any other, but the thing is that they have grown through their experiences. They've seen what's worked, they've seen what hasn't worked, and they've been able to really bed down and to go through all of the challenges that they have learned from. And that can mean having to face being brave. Again, it's about courage, about facing what's worked for you over your life and what hasn't worked for you, what's working for you now and isn't. Now, there's a lot of research that's gone into resiliency surrounding children, which would help us look at whether children are just born that way or not. Some children seem to be more able to cope than others do. And I've seen this over many years. I've worked for 25 years in child protection and have seen the extraordinary journeys that some children have gone through, the huge adversities that they've faced, and they seem to have just been incredibly resilient in the face of that. Now, one of the theories that goes around that is stuff that's written around the theory about orchid and dandelion children. So the theory goes that some children are born as dandelions, most out hardy. Think about the dandelion as a flower which can sprout up anywhere, can keep going in through adverse weather, whatever. Just it is hardy, doesn't need too much care. Whilst a smaller percentage of children are called orchid children, and if you think about orchids, they need a lot more careful tendering and nourishing to be able to nurture them and grow them to be able to thrive. And if we look at that theory, that would say that some of us are resilient again and others aren't. So if I think back to my own childhood and think about whether I was an orchid or a dandelion child, I really wouldn't know because I never had it tested. The most terrible thing I remember happening in my childhood, honestly, was my cat dying. And at the time when my cat died, I was absolutely devastated. I wept buckets over it. Now, that didn't show a huge level of resiliency. And yet, through the journey of life, through other things I went through, I was able to grow and develop that competency of resilience. So I do believe that we've all got something that we can take further, resilience that we can grow. And again, I think what one of the dangers is as labelling people who, okay, you've either got the superpower or you haven't got it. A danger with labelling anything, a danger of labelling anybody, is that it can put us into a box. And then if we think that we're not resilient, we simply can't be, then we can just give up. And that's becoming victim and not realising that you have a choice. Anybody at any level has the capacity to develop their levels of authentic resilience. So I hope that starts to debunk the myth that resilient people are just born that way and it's a superpower you've got or you haven't got. And that's myth number 6. Myth number 7 kind of relates to that, which says that resilience is simple to acquire and it's only built in one way. And the fact is that actually authentic resilience is complex, it's multidimensional, and there are many, many facets to it. So, in fact, it's that very fact that resilience is so complex and there are so many factors and multidimensional that makes it so elusive and hard to pin down. So it isn't something, authentic resilience isn't something that you can simply learn in one go. When you come on our courses, you certainly learn the skills and what the tools are, but you haven't just got it in one go. You need to put those into practice, and the only way you get to put them into practice is through the challenges and situations that you face in your life. So some of the many factors, as I said, is multidimensional. Some of the many factors that lead to authentic resilience are about the ability to look at reality with realistic optimism, the ability to be flexible and adaptable, to be able to really hold perspective, the ability to be able to forge really deep connections with people, and to have meaning and purpose in your life. Now, those are just a few of them. And some of these aspects are going to come naturally to us. Some we may already be knowing that we're doing, and others we may not know. So we can limit ourselves if we think it's just about a few things. From my own journey, when I was first asked about what resilience was, over the years, I used to just say 3 simple things: family, faith, and friends. And absolutely, those 3 things got me through for so many years. And yet there were other things that I wasn't conscious of, that I was ignoring. Or other things that I was practicing anyway, but I wasn't aware they were part of being resilient. So the fact is that we really need to look at all of the different factors, and we need to practice all of the different factors. So if we think it's about 1 or 2 pathways, we can, again, become resilient in the short term, but it's not going to stay with us over the long term. Some of them, when we learn about the different factors of authentic resilience, some can come naturally to us, others can't. Others we can be really good at, and others can be very, very hard. So for me, flexibility and adaptability, that's easy for me to do. That's something that comes very, very naturally to me. Having perspective is something that comes naturally to me. What doesn't come naturally to me, or as naturally, is the ability to really sit with hard emotions, which is what I outlined in my last talk that I did. And that was very, very hard for me. And yet I know that to build my levels of authentic resilience, the things I've absolutely got to practice are the things which I find harder. Even now, having felt I've built a fairly resilient life, the things I know that really keep me going are having quiet times of reflection, my times of meditation, reflection, drawing away, and being kind to myself. And those are the things that I know that I absolutely have to consciously prioritize in my life, in able to remain authentically resilient. So yeah, we can be absolutely sure that resilience isn't simple to acquire and built in one way, that it's multi-dimensional, it's got many facets to it, and that we need to keep practicing it. We need to keep drawing down on what it is that we find easy to do, what it is we find harder to do, and to push particularly into those things that we find harder. So that's this week's Facebook Live, debunking myths number 6 and 7, that resilient people are just born that way. You've either got it or you haven't. Not true. It's available to every single one of us. And also that resilience is simple to acquire and it's only built one way. It's not, it's complex, it's multifaceted, and yet it is absolutely worth building and pushing into and consciously acquiring in your life. So thank you for that, for being with us this morning, and we really hope that you are with us next week to watch our question and answer session. Don't forget to send in your questions and we'll be really happy to answer them, and then we'll carry on with our series on debunking the myths surrounding resilience. Thank you for joining us this morning.